Cold shower. Nobody wants to hear this one. That's fine. It still works. Cold water exposure spikes noradrenaline by up to 300%. That's the chemical responsible for focus, attention, and mood regulation. You just tripled your baseline before you've eaten breakfast. The other thing it does is train your stress response. Your brain learns that discomfort doesn't require a meltdown. That adaptation doesn't stay in the shower. It follows you into the rest of the day. 30 seconds at the end of your normal shower, you will hate it every single time. Do it anyway. Morning sunlight. Your brain runs on a biological clock. That clock is set by light, specifically natural light hitting your eyes within the first hour of waking. Morning light triggers a cortisol pulse that sets your alertness and mood arc for the entire day. It also anchors your sleep timing so you actually fall asleep at night. 2 problems, 1 free habit. Here's what most people do instead. They wake up, grab their phone, and stare at a screen indoors while their brain waits for a signal that never arrives. Then they wonder why they feel foggy until noon. Go outside, 10 minutes. That's it. Deep work first. Your prefrontal cortex is freshest in the first 2 hours after waking. Not after email, not after a meeting, right after you wake up. Most people spend that window on the lowest value tasks they have. Checking messages, responding to things that could wait 4 hours, burning their best cognitive fuel on other people's problems. That's the trap. By the time they get to the important work, the tank is already half empty. Deep work first means the hardest, most important task goes in the first block. Not the most urgent. The most important, those are almost never the same thing. No input first hour. The moment you pick up your phone first thing, you've handed your brain's first decisions of the day to whoever happened to post something overnight. Your attention becomes reactive. Your thinking is now shaped by someone else's agenda. And neurologically, you've kicked off a dopamine cycle that will make sustained focus harder for the next several hours, from one reflex action before you've even got out of bed. The no-input hour isn't about being a monk. It's about the simple fact that your brain does its clearest thinking before it's been flooded with stimulation. Protect that window. Phone stays face down. No podcasts. No news. Let the brain wake up on its own. One hard thing first. Every time you complete something difficult, your brain releases dopamine. Over time, it starts associating effort with reward. That's what people call intrinsic motivation. It's not a personality trait you either have or don't. It's a trained response. And it starts with doing one hard thing early, before your resistance has had time to fully load. Here's the trap most people fall into. They warm up with easy tasks, build a little momentum, and then hit the hard thing when their willpower is already depleted. By then, the brain has a dozen reasons ready to do it tomorrow. Hard thing first, before the negotiations start. 90-minute focus sprint. Your brain doesn't sustain focus in a flat line. It runs in cycles, roughly 90 minutes of higher alertness, followed by a dip that signals it needs to rest. This is called the ultradian rhythm, and it applies to your waking hours just as much as it does to sleep. Most people push through the dip with caffeine and force more output anyway, then wonder why their thinking falls apart by early afternoon. Working with the cycle is simple. 90 minutes of single-task focus, then a real break. Not scrolling, a walk, food, or 10 minutes of sitting without input. Then the next cycle. You produce more, and the quality is higher because you stopped treating exhaustion as a personality trait worth having. Learn one hard skill daily. Your brain builds new neural connections in response to effortful learning. The key word is effortful. Watching a video about chess is not the same as playing chess badly and losing. Reading about a language is not the same as speaking it and getting corrected. Passive consumption produces familiarity. Familiarity is not a skill. The difficulty is the mechanism. Strain produces growth. Easy inputs produce the feeling of progress while producing almost none of the actual thing. 15 to 20 minutes of genuine cognitive effort on something that doesn't come easily yet. Daily, the consistency matters more than the duration. Teach back what you learned. Here's a reliable test for whether you actually understood something. Try to explain it to someone who doesn't know it using plain language and see how far you get before the gaps appear. The physicist Richard Feynman built an entire learning system around this observation. If you can't explain it simply, you haven't understood it. You've memorized the words without grasping what they mean. Most of what passes for learning is exactly this. Teaching forces your brain to find the actual structure underneath the surface. Recognition is not understanding. Recognition won't help you when you need to apply it under pressure. Explain it out loud. To a friend, a wall, yourself in the mirror. The gaps you find are the gaps that mattered. Active recall instead of rereading. Rereading your notes feels productive. It isn't. What it produces is familiarity, and your brain mistakes familiarity for knowledge every single time. Right up until the moment you're tested and find out otherwise. Active recall is the opposite. You close the book, look away, and try to pull the information back out from nothing. No prompts, no cues. It feels harder because it is harder. And that difficulty is exactly what creates durable memory. Researchers at Washington University found students using retrieval practice retained 50% more material after a week than students who reread the same content. Same time spent, 50% more retained. Stop rereading. Start testing yourself. It will feel worse in the moment. You will remember significantly more. Walk when mentally stuck. When you hit a wall, the instinct is to push harder, stare at it longer, force the answer out. This is almost always the wrong move. Walking increases blood flow to the prefrontal cortex and releases BDNF, a protein that supports the formation of new neural connections. Stanford researchers found creative output increased by an average of 81% during a walk compared to sitting. Not after the walk, during it. Here's why. Your brain keeps processing problems in the background when you're not consciously forcing it. The answer that arrives mid-walk didn't come from nowhere. It came from the processing you were blocking by staring at the problem harder. Stuck? Get up. Walk for 10 minutes. Come back. Strength and cardio training. Exercise is the most underrated cognitive tool that exists. Not because of what it does to your body, because of what it does to your brain. Cardio raises BDNF. Strength training improves how efficiently your neurons use glucose. Both reduce cortisol over time. Chronically elevated cortisol literally shrinks the hippocampus. That's your memory center, slowly getting smaller every time you skip the gym. Here's the thing. Exercise outperforms antidepressants from mild to moderate depression in multiple clinical trials. It improves memory, focus, processing speed, and emotional regulation. The research on this is not subtle, and most people still treat it as something they'll start on Monday. 3 sessions a week, a mix of both, that's the minimum that produces the cognitive benefit. Midday power nap. Most cultures outside of modern Western productivity mythology figured this out centuries ago. We unlearned it in the name of appearing busy. A 10 to 20-minute nap clears adenosine, the chemical that accumulates while you're awake, and creates the sensation of mental fog. It also consolidates information learned in the morning. NASA studied this in pilots and found a 26-minute nap improved performance by 34% and alertness by 100%. The critical detail is the duration. Go past 25 minutes and you enter deep sleep. You wake up groggy, cognitively worse than before you lay down. Set an alarm. Lie down. The guilt you feel about resting in the middle of the day is the exact productivity mythology that keeps most people operating at 60% for the back half of every workday. Breath reset under stress. When stress hits, breathing gets shallow and moves into the chest. Short, fast, irregular. That pattern signals your nervous system that something is wrong, which increases the stress response, which makes the breathing worse. The loop runs automatically unless you interrupt it. The physiological sigh breaks it. 2 quick inhales through the nose, followed by 1 long exhale through the mouth. The double inhale reinflates collapsed air sacs in the lungs. The long exhale activates the parasympathetic nervous system, the brake pedal on your stress response. Heart rate drops within seconds. You don't need a nap. You don't need 5 minutes. 1 breath, done right, and the system resets fast enough to matter in real time. The next time your nervous system is running the wrong program, you have the override. End of day memory recap. Your brain consolidates memory during sleep. What you do in the minutes before sleep influences what gets prioritized during that process and what gets discarded. 3 to 5 minutes of mentally reviewing what happened and what you learned flags information for consolidation. You're essentially telling your brain what matters before it runs its overnight filing system. The information you don't review is far more likely to be gone by morning. It also functions as a cognitive wind-down. It shifts your attention inward, away from screens and external input, which eases the transition into sleep. The people who fall asleep quickly and wake up having processed their day aren't lucky. They gave their brain something useful to do with the night. No journal required. Just a few quiet minutes of replay before you close your eyes. Consistent sleep and wake schedule. Every other habit in this list depends on this one. Not the total hours you sleep, the consistency of when you do it. Your brain's entire hormonal and neurological schedule runs on a circadian rhythm anchored to your wake time. Shift it by 2 hours on weekends, and you've given yourself mild jet lag twice a week. Researchers call it social jet lag. It produces measurable impairment in cognitive function, mood, and metabolic health. On Monday, every Monday, for people who sleep in on weekends. Here's the messed up part. Most people sleep a reasonable number of hours but at completely inconsistent times, and then blame their focus problems on anything except the obvious thing. Pick a wake time, hold it 7 days a week. Every other habit works better once this one is locked in. It is the least interesting habit on this list and the one with the highest leverage. That's almost always how it works.